Can you please state your name for the camera?
My name is Chhabra. My nationality is British. I was born in India. I'm from South India, a place called Kerala. It means normally it's when non-whites are calling each other to say, look, you're being too white. So, for example, coconut is brown on the outside and white on the inside. So it's usually used to say to a non-white is saying to another non-white, you're being too white, basically. Yes, I do know there was a court case, I think 10 years ago, and somebody used it at work and it was deemed as racist, so it is legally now. I know it's classed as a racist term. Yeah, I do know it's classed as a racist term. I think now, because legally it has been said, so therefore it is, in my view, in my experience, I used to use that word quite a lot. So did a lot of my friends, and it was always done as a joke, and just for us to sort of take the mickey out of each other to say that, well, we're acting too English or too white. But I never took it offensive. My friends didn't take it offensive because we were just calling each other that. And I used to get it called that mostly because my accent, even when I was young, was very Cockney. So they used to say I was a coconut because the accent didn't have an Asian accent on there. No, not really, no. I just, some of my attitudes are sort of taken by traditional Asians as a bit too English, but me personally, no, I don't identify as that at all, really. I don't think I fit in. I don't think I try and fit into any of the communities. I just live my life as I want and do what I want, really. And it's within what society says, so I don't really look at seeing where I fit into any particular society, to be honest. There's always been conflict because obviously the traditional Asians, they want the youngsters to sort of follow in some of their traditions and not lose the traditions and not just learn everything from the culture we learn from English, but also they want us to continue the old ways, so to speak. So there's always been a conflict, and yeah, that's just between us. That's always been there. Mundu is, it's like the best way to describe it is what David Beckham used to wear when he wore a sarong. It's like a cloth that you sort of wear around your waist, which is traditional in South India. The last time I wore it was when I got married, and it didn't feel anything different. I didn't feel anything different at all. It just reminded me of when I did get married and I was wearing it. I would say that there were times when it was a bit hard. A lot of when I grew up in East Ham, sort of very East London, sort of in my secondary school period of time. So I'd say during my teens, up to my teens, you'd have, like, say, the Asians would stick together, so that's the Indians, Pakistanis, Muslims, and so the Pakistanis and the Sikhs would all hang together. You'd have the English that would hang together, and then the West Indians, half of them would be hanging around the white people, and the other half of West Indians would be with themselves or with the Asians. So, there was a lot of racism names called, but in our days when we were young, way we dealt with it was somebody called us a racist name, we call them back. Somebody hits you back, you hit them back. But we wasn't really offended by the names. Obviously, when you leave school and there's gangs of white people who are just ready to start trying to chase the Asians, it used to be a little bit scary, but we didn't really dwell on it. In a way, sometimes we took it as a bit of fun as well. So, yeah, it was different. Even in football days, for example, a lot of the Asian parents wouldn't go out during 5 o'clock after football, because that's when a lot of the trouble would happen, and they'd get all called all sorts of names. So it's obviously probably not as much like that now, but it was very different years back. Now I would say I didn't. My dad was very strict, and he was very traditional. My mum was a lot more sort of relaxed about how you sort of grow up here in this country. But he was sort of it was modern as well, so he would sort of adapt how he was. But traditional wise, we weren't allowed to do certain things, but I'm not nowadays. Before, when I was young, I used to think that's because we're sort of traditional Asians, but now I realise it's more because of my dad maybe just being strict anyway. Oh, me and him both had issues because he was very strict and want you to sort of grow up doing what he thinks that you should do, and me, I always do what I want to do anyway. So obviously there'd be sort of issues regarding if I didn't do it, it'd give me a beating, you still go and next day do what you want anyway. So me and my dad had issues because of his strictness. Well, I mean, how he is as a parent, some parts of his sort of teachings I try and pass on to my kids, because I think it's, a lot of his life experiences, he came from India, via Singapore to this country, so he had a lot of experiences. So there's a lot of things that I learned from him which I pass on to my kids, but then there's also a lot of things in his parenting skills that I do the exact opposite with my kids. So I talk to my kids, whereas my dad, he never really sort of spoke to his kids, probably because he didn't know how to. But I think the talking is very important. So that's probably one example of something that I do the very opposite of it. I think they should do it if they want to. So if they want to learn a little bit about Indian culture or traditions back in India or back home, whichever, then that's entirely up to them, their choice. Well, at the moment, in the Asian youth in the last 10 years, because of all the terrorism and everything else, I think a lot of the youth from, say, the Muslim youth, for example, they've been sort of given bad media press because of some of the Islamophobic sort of attitudes that some of the media has. So I think they've been given there's been a negative view on how it's sort of put across in the media, sort of the youngsters. You don't really tend to see many comments on Indians, so to speak. But I tend to look at the Indians and the Muslims as all as one, as Asians anyway. But you don't really tend to see anything. I don't really, I do see Asians on TV, and when I grew up, EastEnders, they always had Asians who had traditional Indian accent, whereas I grew up with Asians who spoke exactly the same as me. So when I look at EastEnders now, they probably do have a better representation on TV. But yeah. Well, I mean, I'm always grateful to the fact my dad came to this country when he did. I don't wake up every day thinking I've been Indian or British. I just wake up and sort of do what I've got to do and think about bills and work and those sort of things. But I don't sit there and think about that. So I'm proud to be Indian, I'm proud to be British, I'm proud to be an Asian in this country.
Is there anything you want to say to the people watching right now?
I'd say, when if you got some worries, and the important thing is talking to people, talking if you find that you've been called names or something that's offensive, the best thing is always to talk to somebody. So whether it's talking to somebody at work or friends or family, but is talking. I would say that's the only thing I can recommend to everybody out there.